March was an amazing reading month. Book after book of 4 and 5-star reads for the entire month. But that video's next week. This video, we're going to see if April could possibly top March. Hello everyone and welcome to my April TBR. These are the 7 books I plan on reading this month. Well, it's actually 6.5, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. 3 different genres. I have 2 indie authors. I have 2 pretty much brand new books. I mean, I got everything you can imagine. And a book picked for me by Chas from Bookish Chas. So I got a great lineup for you today. So let's just jump in and talk about what I'm going to read. I try to lay these out in the order that I plan on reading them, and my first book of the month is going to be The Way of Edan by Philip Chase. Now, I'm sure you have heard about this book quite a bit. It's on everybody's TBR right now. In fact, by the time I post this video, a lot of you might have read it already, but I'm really looking forward to reading this. Of course, we all know Philip Chase, Dr. Fantasy, who's one of the pillars of our BookTube community here. I'm really excited to read the fruit of his labors of the last 18 years. I'm especially intrigued after hearing some of the reviews and some of the authors that he's being compared to. And I'm just really anxious to read his book. So I'm really looking forward to that. So that will be the book that I definitely will lead off this month. The second book I plan on reading this month is Curse of the Fallen by H.C. Newell. Newell is also an indie author. I'd like to read for you the blurb for this one because you may not have heard of this book. Magic is the purest form of darkness, and those born of its power must be purged. Born of magic, Narana is labeled a demon, and the cost of such treason is her life. Forced into hiding by the Order of Sorrow, she seeks to disenchant a curse that keeps her just within their grasp. After years of searching, she finds her redemption lies within the forbidden caves of Namashel, where ancient magic and formidable monsters lie in wait. Through perilous trials, enemy territory, and finding trust in those she was taught to despise, Narana soon learns that the journey to releasing such deadly magic may prove more fatal than the Order itself. But for Narana, this is more than a quest for survival. It is a promise of revenge. So this is the first book in a new series by H.C. Newell that is labeled very firmly in all of the information I've gotten about it that it is grimdark fantasy. And I'm really looking forward to reading this one. Additionally, I'm excited that I'm part of the book tour for this author. There's a virtual book tour going on that was put together by Escapist Books, and I'm one of the tour stops. So I'll be interviewing the author on the channel on April 14th in the evening. So I would love for you to just pencil that into your calendars. Stop by in the chat. We will live stream that discussion with the author where I talk to her about this book as well as her craft as an author. And I'm really looking forward to that. So that'll be the second book that I'm reading this month. Next book I'm going to talk about is The City of Last Chances by Adrian Tchaikovsky. Now, I think this has been released in the UK, but this isn't released in the States until May 2nd, I believe. And I was flattered that the publisher reached out to me and sent me an advance copy of this book. This is a major author. It's the first time my little channel's gotten that kind of notice, so I was kind of flattered, to be honest. But Adrian Tchaikovsky is an author that I've really wanted to read. Everyone raves about his Children of Time series, which is a science fiction series, and this is back to his fantasy roots. I've not read Tchaikovsky, but I've heard of him quite a bit, and his big series, Shadows of the Apt, I just saw a video where Ben on Books by Benghis Khan, he put that in his top 10. I think it was like top 3 or top 5. So it made me intrigued about this author, and I knew this one was on the way, so I'm even more excited to read some Tchaikovsky for the first time. So since this is an advanced copy, in all likelihood, I will put out a dedicated review, or at least a dual review of this book sometime in April, so you can look forward to that. All right, the fourth book on my list for the TBR is actually a half of a book. I'm going to be reading half of Taipan by James Clavell. The reason half is I'm doing this as a buddy read with Alan from the Library of Alexandria, as well as Kyle from Read by Kyle, and we're breaking this one up into 2 months because it is a bit of a chunker. So Taipan is in Clavell's Asian Saga, which is 6 books that have different settings in Asia that all have to do with cross-cultural learning, cross-cultural connection, cross-cultural clash of cultures, all of those conflicts between different cultures in different times, all set in Asia. And whereas I loved Shogun and it was set in Japan in the year 1600, this is a different setting. It's set in Hong Kong in the 1840s. And I think has something to do with rival trade groups or merchant groups, something like that. I don't know. I've gotten to the point now where after I add something to the TBR, I don't revisit to see exactly what it's about, because I find like the back flap of books a lot of times kind of ruins things. So I'm going in a little bit more blind, except that it's Clavel, Asian Saga, Hong Kong, 1840s. Shogun was one of the best books I read last year, so I'm really looking forward to reading more James Clavel by reading half of Taipan in April. All right, the fifth book on this list is A Choice by Chas. So Chas, take it away. What am I reading next month?
Hey Josh, thank you so much for asking me to be part of this video and choosing a book for you to read this month. I kind of went back and forth. I wasn't sure. I finally settled on two books that I really think you should read. I had a hard time deciding between the two of them, so I'm going to tell you what those two books were, and then I'll tell you which one I picked for you, okay, and my reasoning behind it. The two books that I finally settled on were Boy's Life by Robert McCammon and The Aeronaut's Windlass by Jim Butcher. And I finally decided to have you read The Aeronaut's Windlass by Jim Butcher. And my reasoning behind that is I know you've been talking about reading A Boy's Life for a while now, and so I know it's something that you're definitely planning to read. I know it's on your radar, something you want to read. And The Aeronaut's Windlass isn't necessarily, or at least not to my knowledge. So it's a little bit more obscure maybe, and kind of off the beaten path. It's different maybe from some of the stuff you typically read. So I think you should read it, and I'm really excited to hear what you think of it. I really enjoyed the book myself, and I know you read some of Jim's other books as well, like the Dresden books. So I think you're in for a treat with The Aeronaut's Windlass. All right? Thanks so much, sir. I look forward to hearing what you think.
Thank you, Chas, for picking The Aeronaut's Windlass. I'm really excited to read this one, and I appreciate the thoughtfulness behind your pick, because it is true. I will be reading Boy's Life by Robert McCammon at some point, but this one wasn't on the radar. I've read the first two of the Dresden Files books, and I have the third one on the shelf. It's been on the shelf for about a year. I just haven't gotten to it yet. And I've heard of Codex Solera, but I'd never heard of this at all. I also like this is a little bit outside my wheelhouse, although it is sci-fi. I've not read a lot of steampunk. So I'm interested in kind of this very different setting from an author that I know is very well regarded, and I appreciate your pick. For all of you viewing, if you don't already subscribe to Chas's channel, go check him out, Bookish Chas. I will link him below. He has great taste in books and produces great content over there. So once again, thank you, Chas, for picking The Aeronaut's Windlass for me. All right, my last two books in this TBR are two works of classic fantasy. The first one is by David Gemmell, and it is The King Beyond the Gates. And this is the second in the Draenei saga, although the Draenei saga, I think, bounces around a little bit from what I understand. I read Legend back in January, and if you missed that review, the one thing that I talked about with Legend is the fact that I finished Legend, and I immediately added everything David Gemmell wrote onto my TBR. Like 30 books. It's the reason my TBR never gets smaller. It just seems to grow even as much as I read. But I'm excited to read more Gemmell, so I'm essentially just going to have one of these on the shelf for whenever I have time to fit it in. Well, April I have time to fit in the next one. I've been told to temper my expectations for this one, that it's not quite as strong as Legend or some of the others that follow, but either way, I am looking forward to reading more Gemmell. He is the voice of heroic fantasy that I didn't know that I needed in my life. All right, the final book that I have scheduled for April is The Silver Chair by C.S. Lewis, which is the fourth book of the Chronicles of Narnia, if you're reading them in publication order like I am. Some of the box sets have that as number 6, I think, but it's going to be my fourth read of this year. I did read Voyage of the Dawn Treader last month because I've been reading one per month, and that was my favorite so far. So I'm definitely looking forward to reading The Silver Chair this month. But hey, that's just a quick TBR video from me. If you've read any of these, please let me know in the comments below. Spoiler free, of course, because I haven't read them yet. And I'd also love to hear what you're going to read in April. What's top of your list? What are you most looking forward to reading? Also, some quick channel updates. What's happening soon? I will have my March book reviews out in a week, and then the week after that, I have 2 live streams on the channel. On April 11th, we will be having a live stream on Dead House Gates with Ian and Alex and Jordan and our special guest. Each book we bring in a different Malazan vet. We're bringing in Alan this time. So I'm really excited to do that live stream on my channel this time for Dead House Gates. And that same week I will have the H.C. Newell author interview. So I hope that you'll check out both of those. I love interacting with you real time in the chat. Would love to see you at both of those live streams. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. Also, you can find me on Twitter and Goodreads. I'd love to interact with you there. I also have an Instagram that I've kind of started using, but it confuses me, but it's Red Fury Books on Instagram, so maybe you can find me there as well. But as always, thank you for watching. Until next time, goodbye.